Morning guys, Jeff with HKS Systems Lock and Safe. Hope you're doing well. So today we're going to be doing just a little bit of some technical stuff for those who are interested in the safe run of safe interests. This is going to be a Sargent Greenleaf 6730. Obviously we've taken off the back panel, back case, so you can see what's going on here. I'm going to do a full teardown and show you exactly the ins and outs of this. I may have to pause the video a couple times to show you the ins and outs, but let's just get started. I got a pointer. It's probably better than putting my big fat finger in the front of it. So obviously we got the black sections, the case. We're going to have the bolt, obviously. Next to that is going to be the lever screw, the lever, the fence, the wheels, flies, and here, if you can't see it, that is the actual tensioner torque adjustment. So I will be going through this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the lever screw and take it apart. You can see right there is the actual return spring. It keeps pressure. That's its job, is to keep pressure against the nose and the fence, to keep pressure against that. When these are mounted upside down, even, they'll work. If those lever springs break or become worn whenever you dial it open, if it's mounted upside down, where this would be a falling from gravity, and those are broken or worn out, sometimes you have a lockout just because there's not enough pressure to allow that to actually seat and fall into the gates of the safe once it's dialed open and the fence is aligned. So we're going to start by taking this little section off here. We're going to take the lever screw off, the screw here. I'll show you those. I'll end up probably just zooming out a little bit and putting them up top there and showing you one at a time. Alright guys, so first thing we did was take that lever screw off. If you can't see that, that was that guy right there. Very simple. You just unscrew it and you pull him out, and he's down there. It's got a little bevel on there. You really can't mess it up. It's just basically a bolt. So you take that out, and I'm going to zoom back out here. And we have the lever. I will use my laser pointer just so you could see all this. So that's where the lever center went. That's going to be the return spring, the lever, the fence section, the nose of the lever. So it's very simple. I'll zoom in on this because the spring's really sort of funky if you never did it. If you can see underneath there, it's actually wound around like a little bushing. So I'll zoom in once I take this out. So this is the lever pushed down, and you can see this is actually the spring, which is put onto this bushing here, and then it's hooked in to the back of the bolt. So all you do is just slide that right out. It's not that hard to do. It's not under that much pressure, but you can see that's how the actual spring is mounted in there. So it's in the back of the bolt, pops right out. Not a big deal. And you can see there's a square section which goes in the back of the bolt. Then you sort of pre-wrap it. You put it on top of the lever. So here we have the lever. You can see the bushing on the lever. That's used to keep that spring in line so it doesn't get stuck between the bolt and the lever itself. Pretty easy. That's not removable, so that should be pinned in there, and it should also be silver soldered. Silver soldering is just like they put in the silver solder of the fence. It's used to join two pieces of metal together, and hopefully they don't come apart. So that is obviously the fence section, which will fall into the gates when everything is properly aligned or removed, one or the other. Okay, so now we're going to move our attention to the bolt. bolt, although it seems like it's really simple. There's stuff moving underneath there you don't know about. You can see in this track down here, there's an actual ball bearing and a spring. So it's got a detent in there. We're going to slide it out, and you could actually see it right through there. And it's used to keep pressure against the bolt. Usually you want to just put your finger on there. It won't go flying anywhere, but it will sometimes fall out when you don't want it to. So there it is. It's a ball bearing. It's got a little spring underneath there. I'm not going to pull it out just because I'll never get it back in, and it'll probably roll away and I'll never find it. Okay guys, so we got the bolt work out. Going to switch from the laser pointer to the actual pointer of a hex key. So now we're going to be introduced into the wheel pack. The wheel pack consists of 3 wheels, movable flies, obviously the gates. Let me just zoom in here. This is a Sargent Greenleaf. A lot of the other models don't have it. It's a torque adjustment system. So I'll zoom in a little bit and we'll see if we can get a little bit better shot of that. Okay, so we got the 3 wheels here. Once again, this is the torque adjustment screw, which its whole main purpose, especially for the Sargent Greenleaf, I'm not sure, most of the other ones don't even offer that. Sort of nice. What that does is, it's got a hex key right in the middle, which is a 5/32 size. And what that does is, you see this little gearing right in here, that creates torque against the 3 wheels. So when it's actively got its Spiralux washer on there, it's going to push up against those as you turn one way and release pressure from it if you go the other way. So this would be decreasing pressure, and they're super easy to move, which you don't always want that. You want the actual sweet spot, and these are usually set from the factory, so you don't really have to adjust these, but sometimes you do. If you find that they're flopping around, it's too easy to dial, or just people keep dialing. The problem with it is, you'll dial it, it'll just keep going sometimes. Too loose. So from wear and tear, sometimes you do want to turn that up. Just the exact opposite. If you turn it all the way up, it's very difficult to turn these then. You can see, you could hit them and they won't even move. So you really sort of want them closer to the middle or the first section of the gearing, which gives a nice happy medium. You want some of the resistance in there, but you don't want too much. And like I said, these are usually set from the factory. They actually have a hex key. So do we. I don't have it out, to measure the torque on there, to keep it so it's nice and smoothly centered. So that's the torque adjustment, and I believe that's a Sargent Greenleaf only thing. I don't know if anybody else offers that model, so in their models. So sort of nice. And then we're going to take the Spiralux washer off. You can see I just started prying it. The secret to the Spiralux is to get it to one of these nubs. If you can see those nubs, that's sort of a nice place to usually grab that Spiralux washer. They do have a Spiralux washer removable wrench that I do have, but I usually don't even use it. I've just been doing this so long, it's pretty easy for me to grab them that way. You try to get that end in line there, and then pop it off, and it works around. It's about 3 layers of a washer is what it is. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to look at the brass section in the middle. It contains the fly on the wheel, and it's going to basically move with it, so you can see that. Now with the locking lugs, which is this, if you take a hex control key for changing and you unlock that, now it is unlocked. Now you'll see, we got a problem. That lug is unlocked from the center post, so right now this wheel is free spinning, doesn't know where it's at. So yeah, if you find that problem, sometimes they do actually just stop working. Otherwise, it's going to be an unlocked lug. So you would need to take your key, put it in, and if you see these sections in here will actually move. What they do is basically just spring these out so it's not connected into there. It's just basically a big gear behind here, and when these are moved outwards, they'll lock in. You can see it's locked back in now, and it'll be like a one-piece design. Here is the Spiralux washer. It's got a beginning, you can see that right there, very, very tiny, and then it just wraps around that post. It's got 3 layers in it, so Spiralux. Should probably get a kit of these if you're going to be doing safe work, because eventually you'll find one that's going to crack or break or go flying across the room, which they're notorious for, and that really sucks. So definitely get a backup one of those. Okay, so now we've got the 3 wheel packs, which is going to be, they're named by their order of the actual combination. So this would be wheel 3, which is going to be your 3rd number in the combination. Below that would be wheel 2, which will be your 2nd, and wheel 1, which will be your 1st number in the combination. That's not always the case with all locks. Some are different, front drive or rear drive, depends on where somehow they're labeled. So it's not always the case. I'm just talking Sargent and Greenleaf on this one. So here you're going to see these are the movable flies, and we'll come right back to this section over here is the locking lug. The locking lug is used to unlock the wheels and set combinations, and then also make sure they're locked together. So we're going to do a quick little study on that. Let me just set this up for you. Alright, so we're against my better judgment, I will take this ball bearing out just to show you what's going on there. This is a pretty in-depth review of the Sargent and Greenleaf. Most of this you'll never need to see, but yeah, that ball bearing is there. Underneath that is a spring, so those fall out really easy. What does that do? That sits in the back of the bolt in that little pocket there, you can see. Not the tapped one, the one in front of that. And it basically just locks that in the out position, keeps it nice and rigid while you're doing operation. So we'll go back to plan 2, which is going to be the wheel section. And we're going to have, we've already removed the Spiralux. Now we've got a couple little parts in here. We could zoom in on here, and we're going to take a look at some of the characteristics of it. This is your movable fly. So the wheel is pretty much like a sandwich, basically. It's a gear inside of a gear. If you could look in the middle. I can't cut one apart very easily. You would pretty much damage it. But some of the most important parts you're going to see on the actual wheel is going to be the fly on the face of it. Those are important for allowing smooth dialing. Sometimes if they get stuck, they interact with the back side of the drive, which is that section. The little thing goes into the section and contacts the fly on the next wheel. So sometimes when those flies either get stuck, or I've even seen them break, they can't, they won't communicate with each other. So without that fly, that drive goes into this little channel right here, and that drive will go right past it. So basically it would be one of the wheels would not be interacting with the other wheel. You would have a lockout situation. Luckily, if they don't break and they're just sticky, sometimes you see that too, where it's a stuck fly. Some will happen where one of these will get damaged. It's a stuck fly. It'll get stuck. It'll throw your dialing off. So instead of your actual dialing section being at the 0 mark or wherever it is, it's going to be thrown off because it's not starting at the typical area where it should. So let me pull this one off. We'll be right back. Actually, I figured before I pull that off, I want to do a little bit of show and tell on this one since it's already open. This is free moving. You can see this intersection is also locked in. Now when you use a key change, what that's doing is basically spreading the inner part of the gear, because this is just a big gear, and then it's spreading that apart. And if you can see, once I turn it, I could take that off now, and now you can see the outer gate is moving around, the outer wheel, but the inner wheel is unlocked at this point, so it's not making contact. Does that happen as well as malfunctions? Yes, that's a malfunction too. Sometimes they'll either work loose or break, or somebody doesn't set them correctly, or they're just enough where it'll pop off and unlock that wheel. And it's the same thing as a broken fly, really, that throws out your dialing. There's no way you could really recover from that. You would have to drill to bypass that. So let me just relock that. Be right back. Okay, wheel is relocked, good to go. Fly is moving nice and smoothly, the way it should. We'll pull that one out. We'll go to next section. This is the back of the wheel. This is going to be basically your drive pin, is what it's called. And that interacts in this channel, as you can see, interacting with the flies. So one wheel, number 3 wheel. I meant one wheel. That's the number 3 wheel though. This is the washer that separates the actual sections of the lock wheels then. This is called the isolation washer. It's just a brass or bronze, or they're made of different materials sometimes. Very thin. And you can see it's geared with the little tabs in there. You can see this is the tube. The tube has these little cutouts, so it'll only go on one way. Don't force it. Do it nice and smoothly, and you won't have any issues. Okay, wheel number 2 looks pretty much like wheel number 3 does. Very similar. Not much of a difference, really. Everything's pretty much the same. So you're going to find on the back of that, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have a little drive that interacts with this fly. This will be wheel number 1 then, which will be another isolation ring in the middle of them. Simple enough. Now wheel 1, it's not going to have a drive because there's nowhere else for it to go. So once we slide that off, you'll find wheel 1, you could always tell, it will have an isolation ring underneath it against the actual wave washer. But it will not have, obviously, a drive because there's no other wheels for it to drive through. So you could always tell that wheel. Could you switch wheels 2 and 1, or I'm sorry, 2 and 3? Yeah, maybe you could, but I wouldn't suggest it. Try to always keep them in line. Some models you can, some models you can't. I wouldn't suggest it though. So that's wheel number 1. And you can tell wheel 1 typically doesn't have the drive on there. So okay, we're all back together on the wheel pack. They're all independently turning. All the flies are still moving fine. We're going to take the lever spring and we're going to mount that back in. There's a little hole right at the top of the bolt. That's where that goes. Take your lever, and this is sort of an art. I'm going to end up blocking the shot, so I'm not going to try to film it, but you basically just put it in as low as you could go, then you pre-spin it. You make sure that that spring sits in this channel here, and it'll put pressure on it, and then you could reinstall the lever screw. Okay, everything is installed, the spring is installed. So what you do basically, the quick and easy way to do that is put the hook section into the bolt, put the spring on the bushing. You're going to have the lever down in this position, and you're going to preload it and then match up your screw, put the screw in. Yes, that spring does break occasionally, and they are replaceable, and you should just have ever so slight amount of pressure on there. If we do everything well, I could take a pick. All the gates are lined up. We should be able to move this in, and it should drop into the gates. Okay, so we did everything right there. So really there's nothing left to show on that model then. That is pretty much everything. Obviously, you know, the nose of the drive cam, everything like that. There is no relocker in this one for some reason. I don't know why it didn't come with one. Sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. It's a very simplistic system. The screw would go into the bottom. Let me just take a little picture of that. The screw typically would be in the bottom here, holding the relocker in place. The relocker is just a little lever system that once the back plate is removed, it's going to fall into this right here. That's what that little cutout is for. I'll show you on the other model, but for some reason this one didn't have one. I was just doing a quick overview of the whole safe and the ins and outs of it. So we'll be back. I'll show you the actual relocker on another cutaway. Okay, so this is the whole Magilla in a perfect setting. So this is your relocker. Basically, this is just like a lever. There's a screw from the bottom, holds it in, and it basically pivots back and forth. There's a spring pushing pressure downward. The only thing that's stopping it from falling into that slot is the cover itself. Once the cover is removed, that pivots up, that locks it in place. That was originally designed back in the days when people were breaking into safes more commonly. First thing they'd do was they would smash the spindle into the safe, thinking somehow that opens it. Did that ever open it? No, never really opened it. Not really designed to do that. Very few probably would be very helpful at all if you did that. So I don't know why they do that. But anyway, this is the drive cam, if you didn't know. The drive cam is handed. So you see you do have the 4 positions, and that is your spline key. It's just a little piece of metal that you would lock the actual dial, spindle, and the drive cam together. You can see they are handed, LH, VD, RH, VU, for left hand vertical down, right hand vertical up. So you do need to do that whenever your lock is handed. You need to hand that and make sure that's specific, otherwise you will have issues. Sometimes the forbidden zones will lock you in or out of the actual dialing sequence, so you don't want that. I'm going to be back in a little bit. I'm going to start the second video of the series, and it's going to be dialing, and it's going to be showing you how to like decode from a key change hole. Alright, we'll be back.